Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Wright. I'm the Education Director for the Wisconsin Veterans Museum. There's Lisa. Perfect. Thank you for joining us for our movie discussion night tonight. Before we get started, though, I just want to say a special thank you to the Wisconsin Veterans Museum Foundation for their continued support in all the free virtual programming that we get to do. And of course, support for the foundation comes in the memory of Pat Finley. So thank you to the Finley family as well for their continued support. Good evening, everybody. We are going to jump right in, and we are looking at the 2009 film Inglourious Basterds. I'll just go ahead and give it away before I ask everybody else what they thought. It is one of my favorite films. I am a huge Tarantino fan, and this movie just really sticks out to me. The acting is superb. Everything is superb, in my opinion, with this film. I don't see any flaws in it. I'm sure Sally's going to disagree, though.
You are exactly right.
So like I said, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Of course, we know him from Pulp Fiction, The Hateful Eight, Reservoir Dogs, amongst many other movies. Cinematography for this film was done by three-time Academy Award winner Robert Richardson. And he's got a slew of movies. The ones I just picked to mention are Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, A Few Good Men, Casino. The list goes on and on for Robert Richardson. Of course, starring the big action star, Brad Pitt, Christoph Waltz in his American film debut, Michael Fassbender, Diane Kruger, Daniel Bruhl, who's got some really good parts out there if you go and look at some independent films that he's done. And then also Eli Roth, and just like with Robert Richardson's CV, there are a number of other actors in this film that are absolutely fantastic. It was produced by Universal and Band Apart Pictures, distributed by the Weinstein Company. Booze can come down. Filmed on location in Germany, Potsdam in particular, and also in France. It had a budget of $70 million. Box office receipts totaled $321.5 million. So it was definitely a box office success. Sally is aghast.
I am.
And so let's get right into it. What did everybody think? Sally, we'll start with you this time.
One of my least favorite movies. I have trouble accepting humor in these deplorable subject matters. So it's hard for me to laugh at things that are so just disgusting in real life.
Oh, that's fair enough.
I think that's my biggest problem with this movie. I think the acting was excellent. That Christopher, is his name Waltz?
Christoph Waltz, yeah.
I hated his character, but I thought he did a wonderful acting job in it.
Suzanne, how about you? What did you think about the film?
Oh, I loved it. I've seen it before. I love that Quentin Tarantino does something different than Pulp Fiction, but he did it again in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you come into the movie and you say, oh, well, there's no way that, sorry, spoilers here if you haven't finished it, Hitler doesn't die in a movie theater. And so then you're like, what? And the same thing in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's about the Manson family. And I mean, that's part of it. And so you're tense the whole time because you realize, oh, wow, Quentin Tarantino, if he feels this way, he can do anything. So it really grips you and keeps you interested. I have to disagree with Sally. I think I don't mind humor to get a very, very difficult subject matter. In fact, it gives us a little bit of a portal into it. As long as we're not laughing at these people, it's kind of, it's a creative way of looking at things, I guess, that we might not look at it otherwise. So that's my opening marks.
Maybe more just maybe humor in the situation, perhaps.
I guess so.
Than the action.
Yes. And the thing is, of course, the best ones are making fun of the people who are these abusers, right? But I was just going to, a real quick aside, there's a book that I just read by Percival Everett, whose book was done for American Fiction, it was adapted for American Fiction, but he did one called The Trees, and it's a comic novel about the revenge killings of Emmett Till. So, I mean, that's about as bad as it can get, and he did it. He pulled it off. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested in reading
it's
that.
definitely
Me
interesting. So I'll just throw it out there that as bad as the Nazis are, this is it's
You
right
said
up
that's
there.
called. You said that's
It's
called
called
The
The
Trees.
Trees by Percival Everett.
Give it a quick note. Lisa, what did you think of the film?
To be honest, I only watched the last 50 minutes because I realized it was today and I've been super busy, but I didn't want to miss seeing you all and taking
Aw.
so I
So what did you think of the last 50 minutes?
um it was okay. I liked the scenery. I thought the acting was good. My son told me that ahead of time that he didn't think that it was my kind of movie and he didn't think I would like it too much. So, but the part I saw I didn't think was awful, but I can see where Sally says like the very ending, like it's difficult for me to see to laugh about carving into somebody's head.
Then
Or to be
you'll have a
saying that.
really difficult time watching the first hour and a half of it.
Okay.
Because I think the first hour and a half really hits that subject matter home through the humor more than the last 50 minutes does.
Okay.
I agree.
And then last but not least, Chris.
I thought it was an extremely well done movie. What I particularly liked about it was the way Tarantino created this air of menace around Christoph Waltz.
Oh,
Every time he shows up, he's smiling and everything, but just underneath it, there's this absolute fearful menace about him that everybody else feels, but is unwilling to express. I mean, it shows up in the opening scenes. It shows up in that in the what was it, the luncheon when he's particularly when Shoshana as her new character is there, and it's very clear he knows who she is, and particularly when he says she'll have the milk.
yes.
It was so that's as contemptible as Waltz's character is. It's I think it's the best done character in the whole movie.
Oh,
and that's what I found. This was the second time I saw it, and I appreciated that even more than I did the first time.
Interesting. I remember when we first saw it, and I said when we came out of the movie theater, I said, "Oh, he's going to win he's going to be nominated, and he's going to win because he's that effective." You're right. Everything you said is right.
Yeah. Like I said, I've seen this movie dozens of times. I must watch it at least a couple times a month. I don't know what that says about me and my lane life. But yeah, it's
You've got a lot of time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Between just sitting around and maintaining my dog over here. Yeah, I do have a lot of time actually. We'll get right into it. So we are talking about Christoph Waltz's character, Colonel Hans Landa. And so at Lisa, you're not really going to get the gist of this question because you didn't see the very beginning. But that opening scene. But you should go back and at least watch the opening scene.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is a brilliant scene. Two men, just a single conversation, and you're just gripped.
It was
But what was everybody else's impressions of that scene? And more importantly, like Chris said, Hans Landa with his smile, his charm, his charisma, and here he is, this menacing figure. But we don't know that yet.
Well, I thought it felt that way even in the opening scene.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just tell from I forget what the farmer's name was, but you could just tell from his reaction that he knew something. He knew that this smiling character was not the friend that he was trying to portray himself as. The menace, to me, the menace is there right from the very beginning.
I agree.
In all the little things, like the little seemingly innocent questions that he's asking about the neighbors and the way he's writing it in the notebook. Every move just feels like something evil is going to happen imminently. And the way Tarantino delays that It just
Yeah, really stretches it out.
Oh, and he uses his close-ups just at the right time.
Oh,
Building. It's a two shot, or it's a, over the shoulder. And when, of course, the part where the farmer's gonna say whatever, it's
Mhm.
close up on both of them. Tension is just unbelievable.
yeah. And I can't.
I
I'm
was just
trying
going
to
to
think.
say,
I'm trying to think of Monsieur Lapidite. His name is really
Yeah.
Dennis Michaud. He does a great job in that scene as well. And you're right, Suzanne.
Yes.
Right at the end when the shoe's about to drop, and you could just see it in his face. And then just the single tear starts to come down as he's about to give it away. It's so gripping.
I was going to say that one of the things about this was the editing of the film, and on the Blu-ray disc, there's an extra called the High Sallies, because I think Sally Mende or whatever, I can't remember her last name, has been Tarantino's film editor for most or all of his films. And so this was a set of outtakes of where everybody's going, "Hi, Sally," to the editor as they're going through the various scenes. When I saw that, I could understand why they had that sort of affection and reverence for her, because as Suzanne was saying, the single tear, the editor brings that out just by highlighting that so well.
What did you think, about the two characters when they're smoking their pipe? And Monsieur Lapidite has his little corncob pipe, and Hans Landa pulls out his big, Saxony German bowl of a pipe. And
is Meerschaum?
That's it.
I think that's a Meerschaum pipe.
Is it? I'm not terribly familiar with pipes, but what did you think about just the difference between the two lives that are being interacted with here?
Isn't that just a sign from Quentin Tarantino saying, hey, you don't know this character yet. You're starting to get a little nervous about this guy. He's a joke. He's a joke that kills people and hurts people, but he brings up that huge pipe. And of course, we could go into Freudian things if you wanted. But I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino giving us a little laugh there for a second. Okay. Whew. He's going to be one of these guys. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a humorous thing.
I thought his pipe kind of reflected a little bit of this pomposity about him.
Yes.
And of course, the pipe for the farmer is simplicity.
Down to earth.
Yeah. And when Monsieur Lapidite lights his pipe, I thought it was really telling. He's not flinching at all. His hand's not shaking. He's very steady. He's not ready to give anything away yet. And I really liked that part of the scene.
I wondered about that. I wonder why they held on to it. It was like, aren't you going to blow that out? Aren't you going to burn yourself?
I'm sorry, just go through my questions here. So at the end of that scene, he does let Shoshana go. Why do you think that is?
I thought it was because he was going to let Mother Nature just kill her off by freezing to death or starving to death. That was my thought.
This helpless girl who's got nowhere to go out in the French woods.
So she's just going to get it in the end, or a wolf will get her or something.
I just thought of something that until now I never thought of, which is he's a hunter. He wants, hey, I'll save her for another day.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. And Suzanne, we constantly have those thoughts around here. Things that we could watch the movie a million times and never have those thoughts. But once we all start interacting, it starts, bringing up different aspects that we haven't thought about.
Very valid point.
Well, I thought part of the reason he might have let her go at that point anyway was that France was occupied. Where was she going to go? Well, how far could she go and hide from the hunters?
Yeah, I always wondered, and Chris, I like the picture that you have in the bottom corner there. He's got his Walther aimed very carefully, or his Luger rather. I just always wondered if maybe he just realized she was out of range.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Ah,
You know, she was pretty far away.
She was.
You know, if he had maybe, you know, one of those machine guns that his comrades had, perhaps, but that little Luger, I don't think it's going to be able to go that far. But I'm sure that there are, you know, that there's a deeper motive for him, you know, just letting her go. And of course, one of those is so she can reappear in the film later.
Of course.
We will get back to her, but I want to talk briefly about the introduction of Lieutenant Aldo Raine, Brad Pitt's character. You know, he gives that little speech for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I find that almost as gripping as Christoph Waltz's opening scene as well.
yes.
And I just want to know what everybody thought about the introduction of Brad Pitt into the film.
Sally?
Well, at first I thought it was a joke. I didn't think he was being serious. I thought, that's not how the military is. What are he talking about? Until they started whacking people with bats and things like that.
Well, I love the fact that Aldo Raine, and I know Quentin Tarantino is like this. First thing I thought was Aldo Ray, the actor from a lot of World War II movies. So that is absolutely gets you, okay. And then I love the fact that, wait a minute, we think that maybe a myth of Jewish people being not strong. Okay, he said, no, not going to do that. 8 people, they're not just going to be behind the guerrillas. They're going to, like he says, we're going to kill Nazis and, you know, Nazis and scalping them. Oh my God, that's just disgusting. But it's like, oh, no, we're not weak. We're going to not take any prisoners, and we're going to do a lot of damage. And it just introduces Brad Pitt like nobody's business.
Just kind of to look at the morality of the whole thing.
Mm.
When we see the initial lineup of the Bastards, but then we get to see them in action. And once we see them in action, we see how brutal and barbaric they're being.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about the Nazis? Is what they're doing just? Are they you know, morally right to go out and do this because the Nazis have been doing this, you know, for years now? Or is it just kind of feeding into the whole cycle of, you know, mankind killing mankind for no reason at all?
I think there was reason for them to do it.
Well, I mean, yes, reason,
yeah.
but you see what I mean, though.
Sure.
It's a justification. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I personally thought that they were doing what had to be done in the brutality of that kind of war. They were fighting a regime that had no problems with genocide, none whatsoever. And when you're fighting a regime like that, to a certain extent, the rules of civilization go out the window, because they aren't going to cut you any slack. And if you show them any mercy, they're not going to respect you at all.
Well,
but I think that's where I think in the context of what they were doing, that was what you do.
Mm. I mean, war crimes are war crimes, though. There are things that people agree somehow to say that you can do certain things in war and certain things you can't do. I think it's Quentin Tarantino saying, hey, wouldn't this have been great if we had retribution like this against the Nazis? Nazis. I'm doing the Brad Pitt thing. And I think it's just his kind of wish fulfillment. Wouldn't that have been cool if we had these guys? You know.
Well, we may have had them.
We might have.
Sure,
I mean, I think that's what the OSS was partly about.
But the carving the swastika in the fort, it's kind of like, once he started doing that, it's like, oh, that's good. That's good, because we had so many Nazis come to the United States. We asked them to come after World War II because of the, you know, the space stuff and all that, and the nuclear stuff. Oh, for them to be here and maybe working, but have a not swastika on them, that would have been all right.
Yeah, I'm going to give you something you can't take off. You can take off the uniform, but you can't take off that carving in your forehead. Not at all.
Yeah.
And just a side note, the first guy that gets scalped, the one that's really close up on, that is Quentin Tarantino.
Oh,
I missed that.
me too.
And then lastly, I want to talk about Aldo Rain's hanging scar. You see that scar all the way around his neck,
Yeah.
just like Clint Eastwood in Hang 'em High.
Hmm.
Why do you think he has that scar? I always found that really interesting until I started doing the research for this. And I think I know the answer, but I want to see if anybody else out there can maybe piece or put the puzzle pieces together.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
You know,
I
he
kind of
says
thought-
later. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I kind of thought he might have gotten caught in an ambush or something with a garrote around his neck, and he
Mm.
escaped.
I mean, that very well could be. You know, there's no clear answer. Nothing. Tarantino himself's never even talked about it. But Aldo Rain does talk about his background later on in the film, about how he used to be an illegal moonshine runner.
Oh.
And you know, one of the punishments for running illegal moonshine, especially in Tennessee, out in the backwoods, was a hanging back then. So I was always wondering, well, did he get caught and he got that hanging scar for doing illegal activity? I just thought it was curious, and I've always noticed the scar. It just, for me, it stands out like a sore thumb every time I see him in this film.
Funny.
So we move on to chapter 3, German Nights in Paris. And Shoshana tells Frederick that her aunt had left her the cinema when they're first talking. How plausible is that, do you think? And if it's not plausible, you know, and of course, pure speculation, how do you think she might have about coming to own the cinema?
That's a question I had. I don't have an answer. What about you, Eric? What do you think?
I don't think that it was her aunt at all. I think that I can't remember who said it either. It's either Chris or Suzanne. You know, if she's this wild child who's cut loose in the forest of France, you know, as game, so to speak, then she's going to take the appropriate actions to save herself. And I think she maybe might have killed the owners. Or owner, I don't know how many there were, and then created this backstory.
Thought of that.
Like I said, pure speculation. We never get an answer on that, but I've always just kind of wondered that too. It just seems strange that, you know,
Interesting.
she has this aunt and uncle who have all of a sudden died and left her a cinema. And now she has this new identity with Marcel.
I
And
kind
I
of
don't know
thought-
how Marcel comes into the picture either.
I kind of thought that it might have been that the previous owners were Jewish, like she was, and they had managed to escape and gave this to her since she was not going to go anywhere.
Okay.
Oh, that actually seems a little more plausible, Chris, to be honest.
That does.
That is good.
And then so Chris touched on this earlier, and I want to get everybody else's thoughts. I'm not so sure I agree with Chris, but when they are in the restaurant having their lunch, and Shoshana and Hans Landa finally meet up, Chris says that, you know, he recognizes her, he knows who she is. What does everybody else think about that? Do you think that it's more than just happenstance?
That's my 5-minute warning. Sorry. I'm really hating to leave this, but anyway. I agree with Chris. I mean, because of the milk thing.
I do
The
too.
milk thing.
Yeah.
And then he plays the long game.
Well, and I guess that's kind of my next question. If he
Mhm.
does know who she is, why does he just get up and walk away?
It's the cat playing with the mouse.
Yes.
Exactly what I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And remember,
Maybe-
you know, at the end, I'm sorry, at the end though, he you realize that he's very pragmatic. He figures out, hey, if this doesn't go the Nazis' way, maybe I can do this. And so he's already been thinking that, and maybe he thinks maybe Shoshana, maybe she's a valuable, she clearly got away from him, so maybe don't get rid of her because he might be able to use her, manipulate her, something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you go down the rabbit hole, if he knows who she is at that luncheon, he's definitely already got plans well in advance.
Yes.
And so that's why he doesn't do anything to her right there, because you're right. She probably is going to be able to serve some purpose
Maybe.
later on. It turns out she serves a fantastic purpose. But I looked at a bunch of different boards. Everybody's asking this question, and it seemed like it was 50-50, across whether he knew who she was or not. I'm still not so convinced, but you never know.
Mhm.
And then once they come in and have the small screening just to see what her theater is like, and then they leave, and Shoshana and Marcel start talking about, well, Shoshana's plans. Even then, but even as it progresses more toward the end of the film, do you think Marcel is on board all the way with what she's planning on doing?
Mm. He loves her.
He does.
He'll
Yeah.
do what he'll, and he knows she's smarter than he is, and just he'll do what he'll follow her lead, I think.
I think he was initially skeptical, but came to agree with it. Otherwise, I don't think he would have gone behind the screen and tossed a cigarette.
Do you think he made it out?
No.
No. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody made it out of there except for the three,
Right.
at the end. And another thing that I was reading about that particular scene at the end was that the heat was only supposed to be about 400 degrees, but the explosion was much larger than they thought. And it turned out that the temperature in there was over 1,000 degrees. Eli Roth and the other Dominic Rococo, the other Italian cameraman, they really got singed really good in that scene.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the big swastika that was hanging up above the screen was not supposed to fall down.
Oh,
It was
but it's
held
very
up by
effective.
steel cables.
Oh my
But because of the intense heat, it weakened the cables, and it fell down. Cinematic things like that happen all the time. You're just lucky you have the camera rolling sometimes.
Oh wow, that's interesting to
Ooh.
know.
Maybe.
Like I said, I have to go, and I really hate this, but can I just throw one thing out that I loved? And we're not at that chapter yet. It's the one with the tavern and that long scene. Did anybody else, when they saw it for the first time, gasp when Michael Fassbender went like that?
Oh, absolutely. I
went,
lived
oh,
in Germany
no,
for
it's
4
gonna do
years,
this.
and as soon as I saw him do that, I was like, "Oh,
Uh-oh, you're dead."
through."
We gasped. We could hear the people gasping in the theater.
I still even do 3 like this, even to this day.
I'll try to catch you guys another time, but this has been wonderful.
Yeah, our next movie discussion night will be in June, June 28th.
Okay,
So
I'll look for
please
it.
sign up, and we look forward to seeing you then, Suzanne.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
I've not been in a discussion with Suzanne. It was very nice to have her.
I talk a lot. Sorry.
Oh, that's
Great.
good.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that was her first time joining us. I don't recall seeing her before.
Yeah.
Me neither.
So moving along, and Suzanne kind of pushed us right into this. Nice segue. The bar scene, Operation Kino. We meet Major Dieter Hellstorm. What a name! That's a I kind of wish my name was Dieter Hellstorm. I mean, that's just a cool name to say. Introducing yourself like that. But he was a very compelling character, I thought, as well. But we only get to see him twice throughout the whole film. And what are your thoughts on his character? Do you think he's as menacing as Christoph Waltz, or is he more, he's more a punch in the face?
I just had a sense he was more. Christoph Waltz is unique in his ability to bring that menace without, that underlying menace. And I don't think any of the characters, including that character, were even trying to do that. So he was definitely more a punch in the face kind of guy.
Lisa, I still don't think that we've caught up to where you were at yet.
Nope. It's okay. I'm enjoying it.
And then shortly after that, we meet Archie Hickox in the scene with Mike Myers. I was so surprised to see him in this film. I don't know what everybody else thought. What's that, Sally?
I didn't even know he was in it.
Yeah, he's the English officer who explains the operation to Michael Fassbender in the room with Churchill.
Missed that.
Yeah, no, they did a good job with the makeup. And you know, obviously that's not Michael Myers' real accent. But I was, like I said, I was, as soon as I saw him, I was like, that's Mike Myers. Oh my God, that's Wayne from Wayne's World.
Oh, okay.
But oh, okay, we just covered that about how he blew his cover. So we won't go into that question. But then
I'm just
also,
curious. I didn't realize there were two different ways of showing three.
yeah, in Germany, and I mean, I don't recall it so much in Holland, and I really don't recall it so much in France. I lived in all three countries,
Yeah.
but in Germany, this is three. When you say three, this is three.
Okay.
Thumb and two fingers. So when
Oh,
he's in the
really?
bar scene and he does
Sure.
like this, I
Yeah.
mean, it was just, you know, like I said, I was just like, oh no, he just gave the whole thing up. And you can see Dieter Hellstorm's face too. It changed immediately.
Yeah.
You know, he already had suspicions, but you know, once he did that, it was like, no, that's it. He's some sort of spy. He's got to be. And I got to say, I do like Michael Fassbender in a lot of different movies. I think he's a wonderful actor. I believe this is the first movie I saw him in, and I was impressed with him, I thought.
Yeah.
Let's see where. Oh, so yeah, in this it's chapter 4, Operation Kino. We go through a lot of different phases. We go from the bar scene to the doggy doctor. We also have the introduction of Michael Fassbender's character, like I said, with Churchill and Mike Myers as they're explaining the mission. But then we also have Hitler, and he's changing his mind about, because he initially was not going to go to this premiere. He did not want the attention on him. He wanted the attention on the film itself and the actor. But he changes his mind and he decides to go to the premiere. Why do you think he changed his mind? What was inside him that said, you know, I don't want to say risk, but for lack of a better risk, you know, taking the emphasis off of what this is supposed to be by my presence, you know, being there.
Well, it sure seems like he enjoyed it when he was there.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, so, you know, maybe it's just his ball game or his whatever. He just was that he wanted to participate because he enjoys that so much. I mean, he was laughing up a storm.
As I recall, didn't he actually say that his presence might act as an endorsement kind of to the movie that would enhance its appeal throughout the Reich?
Perhaps.
I think one of the characters did anyway. I referred to, you know, having Hitler there would be a boost that they could offer.
Okay. When it comes, I can track the conversations a lot better when I get to listen to it, but when I have to read it, you know, it's, I don't want to say I don't pay as much attention, but I don't think I pay as much attention. Especially when I've seen it as many times. It's like, okay, this is kind of how it's going to go. I don't want to read the words. I kind of know what's going to happen. So maybe I should have paid a little more attention in the reading portions when they were doing the foreign languages.
The Hitler character in this movie reminded me of the Hitler character in the movie Downfall, particularly that scene there's a scene there that gets played out over and over and over again in various memes that it's used for. But the Hitler in that Downfall scene is you see the manic character of him, and you see that throughout this Hitler character, except in the movie where he's laughing about, you know, all the Americans being killed.
Yeah, the no. Yeah, and then issuing some ridiculous order that, you know, the bastard known as the Bear Jew will no longer be known as the Bear Jew. Right. I want that spread to all the soldiers in France. It's like, how are you going to do that?
Right.
Ridiculous.
This is a little off topic, but have you seen that Hitler satire where they they dub in words and they do it for a lot of things because I've never
Yes.
seen it before.
That was what I was referring to, the downfall.
Yeah.
Okay, then I saw it for the first time and like I sent it to my son and he's like, oh yeah, they do that all the time. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So then I
Yeah.
had to look it up and I was like, really? I'm really missing out on this. I've never
Yeah.
seen.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's like Chris said, I don't even want to try to guess how many memes are out there that
Yeah.
deal with that, but they dub it in for laundry detergent or
Right.
football games or
Yeah.
hot dogs, just the
That
craziest stuff.
That same Hitler scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if you see the original without without these various parodies and satires, he comes across in that movie Downfall the same way the Hitler character in this movie comes across as a maniac, obsessed with his power and particularly with Jews.
So move on to the last chapter, Revenge of the Giant Face. I love the names of all these chapters too. Even if you thought the film was kind of boring, just being able to switch the chapters like Tarantino does, it still keeps you kind of, engaged with the film. I thought anyway. But by this point, Hans Landa knows what he's going to do. When everybody's arriving at the theater, he knows that he's going to try to make some sort of deal by getting Lieutenant Rain, getting him out of there and getting him on the phone. But he still goes through with the killing of Bridget von Hammersmark. Why? Why doesn't he use both of them? Why doesn't he take her too? It would just be so easy.
I don't know.
I think it was just kind of PO'd at her,
Yeah.
basically.
That's what I was gonna say. It was the all the lies that she was going through and he kept trying to break her and it was like and I think it was just the whole pile of it. It's like, okay, well I'm gonna show her.
Yeah, and he did. And once again, just another extra thing that I read about the film as I was doing my research. When Bridget von Hammersmark is being choked, those are Tarantino's hands. He wanted to make it as realistic as possible, and so he was physically choking her for like 20 seconds at a time. And they managed to get it. I think it took them 2 takes, so it didn't take him very long. But he wanted that scene to look very realistic.
Read that.
So Hans Landa is making this deal with Lieutenant Rain. What do you think of the deal? Do you think that would have gone down? And what do you think that I have the other bastards or remaining bastards? There's only one remaining bastard, and that's I can't remember his name sitting next to him.
I can't either.
But what do you think? What do you think of that deal? Would you make that deal, as Brad Pitt says?
I kind of think there might have been more negotiation.
Yeah.
I mean, the demands were pretty outrageous when you come right down to it. And he was not exactly in the strongest bargaining position at that point when you come right down to it either. I mean, you've already got, this is right around the time of D-Day.
Yeah. No, actually, it's a little bit after. So it would be between D-Day and Battle of the Bulge. So it's probably in the fall there, September, October sometime.
So he has some sense that this is not going to go well. I mean, he's already made that determination. So this idea that he could extract that much as at the end at that position, that struck me as kind of as unrealistic. I don't think I would have been surprised if they would have cut that deal with him. I mean, he might have been known as the the Jew hunter or whatever it was, but I don't think that the U.S. government or the Allies would have cut him that kind of slack. It's not like Werner von Braun, who had some great expertise that he could bring to the United States for some plan they had. All he was looking for was his payday, and I don't think they would have given it to him.
Well, Well, the way that it sounded like when Brad Pitt, when he handed the phone back after the guy's talking, and then he wants to talk to Brad Pitt, and then Brad Pitt, and he says something to Brad Pitt, take him over the line and take him into custody or whatever. It almost sounded like he had listened to everything this guy was saying, but he was just humoring him by listening. And then he said, like, yeah, we listened to it all, do this. So
Yeah, and he knows what, Lieutenant Rain is doing over there. He knows what he has done over there, and he knows what he's probably going to do with this guy, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, Chris, yeah, this is, so this is late 1944. I'm sure most of the Allies were looking at Germany by this point going, they're not going to be able to last much longer, regardless of making this deal or not. So yeah, no, maybe they were just humoring, like you said, Lisa, getting him to let this plan go through to its end, which it was a fantastic end. And then, we'll just bring him in and we'll do what we want with him.
because it wasn't really an exchange. It was just him rambling on and on. And I
Right.
want this, and I want that, and I want this, and I want that. And then it ended, and then they gave it to Brad Pitt, and it was almost like, oh yeah, they were just humoring him.
Yeah, there was a man from Nantucket.
Did you notice Christoph Waltz? Every German he referred to was named Herman. Every
No.
last one.
Oh.
Herman's going to drive us here. I've got a good, capable radio operator named Herman over there. Herman here. Everybody was named Herman.
In honor of Goering.
And I'm sure he probably didn't know these kids' names. These are just privates, who were just doing their regular jobs. But to him, everybody was Herman. I just thought that was funny. A little bit of the filmmaking aspect. First of all, I want to know what everybody thought about the music that Tarantino used in this film. You use music to create emotion or mood or intensity. How well do you think the music was placed throughout the film to bring all those senses to life?
I liked it. And there was one particular part, I wish I could remember what the scene was, where the music sounded like a Sergio Leone spaghetti Western. It was,
oh yeah.
I nearly I almost started laughing when I heard it, because I half expected Clint Eastwood to come out there
Yes,
with Sombrero and Serapi. But I wondered whether that was just sort of an homage, or whether that kind of. But I thought the music overall, it really set a mood. An appropriate mood at each point where it became kind of noticeable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the music throughout. One particular tune, he uses it twice in the film. He lifted it from an old black and white movie called The Battle for Algiers. And it's a da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. And that's the music they use when the guy's in the jail cell and they're coming to get him out so he can join the Bastards. And so with the Sergio Leone spaghetti Western, music, and lifting that from the Battle of Algiers, definitely, those are homages to, different films that Tarantino was really enthralled with. Tarantino's definitely a fan of those spaghetti Westerns, and he's always bringing stuff into his films from other films as, a sign of respect. And then the David Bowie song, When Shoshana's Getting Ready. I thought that was such a change in the music, but it fits so well. And I really like that song from David Bowie too. Also talking about Tarantino, and I don't want to drone on about him, but he did both write and direct this film. And did you? And I'm not trying to. I'm looking at this as a standalone piece of work. Not trying to compare it to Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs or any of his other works. But did you find his writing and directing style in this movie compelling or sort of hard to follow?
Hard to follow for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Tarantino fan in any way, shape, or form.
Have you seen Pulp Fiction, Sally?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Didn't like it.
That I found that, and I said I wasn't going to do this, so I'm not going to do this. Never mind.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I found that the first time I watched that movie, I had to go back and watch it again the second time, because the first time I watched it, I didn't know what I just watched. I didn't know where things were supposed to be. I didn't know how things were supposed to be. He clearly does not take that hardcore of an approach to this film, but there is definitely, you kind of jump ahead and go back a little bit. You go to this character and then that character, and everything's supposed to be happening all at once sometimes. But I thought that this, out of his style of doing that, I thought this was probably the easiest to follow, perhaps.
Okay.
My
Yeah,
opinion.
I didn't feel like I was having any trouble following it. It seemed to, all the parts seemed to me fit together well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I want to talk about the cinematographer, Robert Richardson. We've mentioned him before. We've seen his work in our discussions. This is his sixth time working with Tarantino in this particular film. And so what did you think of the cinematography in relationship to a cinematographer-director sort of relationship? Can you see that he's been working with him, previously on all these films, just like Chris mentioned earlier with the editor, Sally Mendez, I think her name is.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you see how these two are on the same sheet of music mentally and visually without even really having to talk to each other, since they've worked together so much? Or do you think this is just a hell of a cinematographer doing a great job?
I just thought, to the extent that you think about cinematographer, director, and editor, that they all felt really comfortable with each other. I mean, that's what comes through with, the way the scenes fit together. It was like they were almost communicating telepathically about how to make this movie. I forget what it was that somebody, it might have been Tom Hanks, who once said it's impossible to make a movie because there's so many things that go into it, and it's a miracle that anything gets up on the screen, and yet it happens. And I think the reason it happens is because you have all the parts fit. You have director, script writer, editor, cinematographer, sound. I mean, all these parts have to fit together. And in this case, to the extent you focus on the cinematographer and the director and the editor, it's pretty clear they feel really comfortable with each other.
I never thought of it.
Yeah, I could feel that from the short part that I saw. You mentioned the guy who lit everything on fire, and did he get out? I could tell that he probably wasn't going to get out from the goodbye scene that he had with her, where they both embraced and kissed, and it looked like a goodbye. Like
a little bit of foreshadowing, perhaps.
Yeah, we've got here, so long, thank you, and they kissed, and then, but that how he flicked that thing and it went in slow motion, and then, so that just even that scene felt like it was in sync.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, Lisa. Yeah, for sure. Which is kind of a shame, although it would have made the movie, I think, maybe a little more corny. I would have liked to see Marcel and Shoshana get out. I would like to see them alive at the end. But like I said, that would have made it just a little corny, I think. But I did like their characters. So, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, there's talk about the film and its fragility as nitrate kind of resonated with me, because when I was growing up, I remember my father had some, I think it was actually World War II film that was really fragile. I think we watched it once, and you could just tell that the stuff was drying out and so on. And so when I saw all that film that they had there, it reminded me of that. And in the end, I grew up in Rochester, New York, where the Eastman Kodak Company was located. And so you had the Eastman House, And I remember taking that film down to the Eastman House and donating it to them for their archive, because
Oh, wow.
I think they were the only people that I could imagine would have been able to take that film and preserve it somehow,
Wow.
because it was so fragile.
Ooh.
That's a
And-
cool story. Have you contacted them in the years since to see if they still have
No,
it?
it's been years since I've been back to Rochester. If I ever get back there, I mean, both of my parents are dead, and so we don't have any connection to
Mhm.
the Rochester, except my high school. And I don't get back there anymore. But if I ever get back there, and I keep telling myself that's like on my bucket list, I will go back and ask them and talk with them and see what they did with it.
Yeah, I mean, just like at the museum, anything that we take in, there's paperwork, there's documentation.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they have the same sort of processes there.
Yeah. Well, the Eastman House is a fantastic place. They actually show movies there. They have an old-fashioned kind of cinema. I actually saw a silent movie where they had a pianist come in and play the music for the background. It was really fantastic.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, it really was. I think as I recall, it had something to do with the polar explorations of Robert Peary.
Oh my goodness.
But watching that film and seeing that pile of film and them talking about the fragility, the volatility of it, all I could think about was that film that we had in our house that could have, a little spark or something could have set the whole thing off.
And your connection was so special and so cool, and mine was, I remember when the teacher would roll that into the room, and it was
Yes.
so exciting. And then you watched her like doing this, and it would
Yeah.
start, it would break and go, and then she'd have to fix it in again. And you got to sit there wasting time, but then you watch the film. The film days were exciting.
Mhm.
They absolutely were, Lisa. And I was actually one of the students who was trained on how to run the
Oh my
projector.
God.
You were
Oh.
AV club.
Wow.
I wasn't an AV club, but I was able, the teacher sat down. I think there was 3 of us. And she showed us how to do it, how to load it up, how to thread it through, and what to do if it
Wow.
breaks or if it comes off the spool. And
Wow.
I remember being, like maybe 11 or 12, and I just felt so high and mighty because I'm the one who gets to do this.
Our teachers never let anybody touch it.
So that must be where your fondness for film comes from.
Yeah, I got to do
Maybe.
I got to do the film strip once where
Oh,
ding,
yes.
then you turn it ding and you turn it.
Yes, I was going to say that.
One time I got to do that.
And Chris, just to kind of go off of your note about the film that your family had, ironically enough, I actually had an opportunity to see nitrate get lit on fire just last night.
Wow.
And just like they say in the movie, it was a military presentation, and these people deal with hazardous materials and chemicals and things like that.
Mhm.
And they were showing the difference between burning a piece of paper and burning a piece of nitrate.
Yeah.
And it was just like they showed in the film. The paper just kind of fizzled and smoked, and that nitrate just almost exploded immediately. It was crazy.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm going to be able to use this tomorrow night. Excellent. We are starting to run low on time, but I wanted to ask this question too. Italian, German, English, and French. 4 different languages were used in this film. How difficult was it for anybody associated with the film, much less the director, and probably more the director than anything else, maybe the editor as well? But how difficult was it to make sure everything falls into place with everybody using the different languages, especially when Shoshana and Private Mueller are speaking and they're going back and forth between French and German in the restaurant? How do you think that they managed to keep everything so well scripted and so well put together with that kind of barrier or hurdle to overcome?
I don't know, magic.
According to Tom Hanks, it must be.
I always wonder about that when I watch these war movies, because we know it was France and German and Holland and Luxembourg. They all speak a different language. And then the American soldiers come in and we don't know nothing about these languages. How did they even communicate with each other? And that was real life. But yet in the movie, it comes off so smooth, so easy. I don't understand it.
Sally, they have apps for that on the phone.
Not in World War II. Even I know that.
And not in 2009 either.
One of the characters, I think, actually makes some reference to the question of whether Americans can even speak another language.
Yeah, Diane Kruger.
Yeah.
Once their initial plan goes south and they have to think of a new plan, she's like, "Can you Americans speak any other language?"
Right. Yeah. Speak Italian, you know.
I speak a little Italian. Donnie,
he says to the third one,
Donnie speaks the third most. I don't speak Italian. Like I said,
you're the third most. Yeah.
And
Just
he was
keep your
the
mouth shut.
worst.
As a matter of fact, start practicing right now.
Yeah.
He was the worst. The guy who asked Brad Pitt, he was the worst at the language.
Oh,
Right.
oh yeah.
Oh, that
With that
language.
thick Southern drawl. Grazie.
Grazie. Yeah.
See, Sally, you did like the movie.
I did find that humorous. I did find that.
So I'll ask my last question. We'll close out the night. Who is everybody's favorite actor and why? Lisa, since you got the least amount of screen time for the film, I'll start with you.
Okay, because I have a hard time with knowing the characters' names anyhow, and then
Sure.
coming to the last 50 minutes, I'm just going to describe the person to you, and you guys all know who it is. It's the guy you've been talking about. And it's because in that time period I saw, I picked up on the way Chris said that he's always menacing, but he's got this jovial way about him. And I liked when he goes, "That's a bingo." And Brad Pitt goes, "That's how you say it, right?" And Brad's like, "We just say bingo."
Yeah.
Bingo! How fun! Yeah, I like that line too.
I like that character.
Yeah, that's Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
Portraying Colonel Hans Landa. Yeah, that's a good scene. How about you, Sally?
I got a three-way tie with Shoshana
Hmm.
and Christopher Waltz and Brad Pitt.
Okay.
They all struck me, their acting struck me for different reasons. And
I could definitely see that. Yeah. And especially with Shoshana. That really was a good character. And I cannot remember the actress's name or actor's name.
I
But
don't know.
but she nailed it.
You
I think
know,
it's really hard to come up with a favorite character because they all nailed it. I didn't see one bad piece of acting in this film.
No, I didn't either.
you know how like when Ben Affleck dated, or now he's married to J-Lo, and they were Bennifer. So now we have to find a way to take your three names and throw it into a machine. Come out with one name.
That's a
Well,
funny
we'll
one.
have to think about that offline, and maybe you can email me if you come up with something good. How about you, Chris? Who was your favorite character and why?
Well, not the favorite character. I mean, it's kind of hard to think of Christoph Waltz as a favorite character, but I think
Right.
in terms of acting,
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
I
it
would
stood
go
out
with that.
above everybody else, frankly.
Right.
I can agree with Sally that, you know, Brad Pitt and the woman who played Shoshana did a superb job, but I think Christoph Waltz he was a running theme through this whole movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Just the menace that Nazi ideology represented to the world. I think. I mean, go ahead.
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
going
No.
to say, I think he got the Academy Award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best supporting actor.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a main. I don't think there was a main actor in this film. I think they were all supporting actors. But yeah, he did win the Academy Award for it.
Yeah.
Did you?
Basically,
Sorry,
it was an ensemble.
Yeah.
Really, what it amounts to.
And I don't have this question on my sheet, but it seems to be that everybody, and I'm going to pick the same person as well. Christoph Waltz's Hans Landa. and now I'm starting to think about it. Did you, as you were watching the film, were you anticipating him coming back on the screen? Were you like eager to see his character again? And I don't mean his actions or what he stood for or represented, but just to see the actor come back on and portray this character again.
No.
I wasn't looking forward to seeing him come on because I knew there's something wrong, something really bad was going to happen whenever he appeared, one way or another.
I didn't care.
Well, I still, even to this day, I anticipate him coming onto the screen. I can't wait. I don't want to fast forward through anything because there's a lot of great stuff that happens in between. But you know, I'm just like, I know he's coming. I know exactly where he enters at. I know his entrance line, and I'm just like, oh, kind of giddy.
Can I just raise a couple of points here?
Sure.
Yeah. First, I did not realize until I saw the Blu-ray version of this and the extras that there had actually been an Inglourious Basterds movie made like in the 1970s.
Yep.
Really?
With an entirely different plot and everything. And
Yeah.
with the word spelled, with the title spelled correctly.
Right.
But the thing that was interesting, which I had not realized until I saw the extras, was that the director of that original movie was in this movie as one of the actors.
Oh,
yeah, and in the movie scene, in the scene in the theater, when the fire starts, there's a character. It looks like a German officer yells out "fire,"
and that's him.
That's him.
Huh.
That's the director of the original. And the
That's
reason he did that
interesting.
was because in the original movie, he also played it. He also acted in it as an artillery officer who yelled fire to set off the artillery.
Oh, that's funny.
And in the extras, they actually show the scene where they film him doing that, and he yells out fire, and then everybody applauds, and
That's good.
It's really an interesting scene. I had not realized that there had even been a previous one, and Bo Svensson was in that movie as well as in this one, as I recall. I think Bo Svensson was in this one. I think
I want to say I remember that name on the cast list. I just can't remember what character he was.
Yeah. The second thing was going back to the High Sallies that I mentioned earlier. One of the scenes that they use in that is Shoshana when she's running away to escape. And so she's running, and you see her and all. She's got this makeup on, and she looks in a terrible condition from having been under the cabin and everything. So she runs away, and she runs off screen, and the screen goes blank as she's off the screen. And then she comes back, turns into the camera, and smiles and says, "Hi, Sally."
That's funny.
If you can get a hold of the Blu-ray and look at some of the extras, I think you'd enjoy it.
I'm gonna, God, I don't want to sit down and watch it again tonight, but I really wouldn't mind. I want to see the director from the original movie. I want to go back and see him again. Now that I know that little tidbit, I didn't know that before.
That's funny.
So our next movie, like I was saying earlier, is going to be June 28th. And we are going to be looking at a 2004 film called Ike: Countdown to D-Day. I've only seen it once before. We used it as a team building sort of exercise to watch this film and talk about leadership. And I was really struck with it. It is, Magnum PI. What's his name? Tom Selleck. So Tom Selleck is portraying Dwight Eisenhower. He does a fantastic job in this film. It was not a film that was released in theaters. It was a made-for-TV film, but it still has the quality, the fine acting, the fine directing that you would expect from a major motion picture. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, I hope to see you in June.